G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of SouthRidge Monaro build. For this episode, it's all about the twin gauge install. So for the process, we're going to be scanning, designing in 3D printing, and then also installing the gauge setup in the car. So let's just run through what we've got here on the table. So I have chosen some basic gauges that I believe are suitable for my needs at the moment, which is the oil pressure, which I think everyone can agree oil pressure is essential. And not so important, but still I like to know what's going on, is the boost pressure. Even though this is a supercharged setup, it's still good to see that everything's vacuum and boost pressure is what you're after. So the kit comes with most of what you need. I also bought some silicone hose for the vacuum, but it comes with everything that you need. Wires, cables. The only thing that you probably want to set up is an inline fuse, your power source, and then obviously it comes down to where you choose to get your 12 volts from. There are some other elements like the oil pressure sender unit. This I'm not sure if it's going to fit straight up. It does come with an adapter. We'll see how we go when we go to install that. Fingers crossed, it's pretty straightforward. Now for the actual gauge setup, I am placing it in where the little pocket is, just in front of the selector or manual, transmission tunnel is there. So just underneath the radio. So if anyone's had a VT or a VX, you'll know that this unit is pretty useless, especially this mechanism here constantly fails. This one just here. You can get them from any wrecked Commodore, but I can guarantee you if you get one, you'll install it and in about 5 minutes it'll break. It's just a poor design made of plastic, and it really should have been manufactured in something a bit more strong, I guess. Here it is working, ironically, out of the car. But typically, the lightest touch, or if you go over a bump, that pocket will just open up, and it's just something that everyone wishes to replace with a more purposeful component in their car. A lot of people have designed setups for this, simply just replacing it with a flat panel and using these mounting points here to fix it in. I thought, why not have a crack myself, seeing as I have the gear. So I've come up with this design here, which is to suit my needs and my taste in design. I've gone for just a simple extruded twin gauged setup. It's just printed out of PLA at the moment. I am getting some black PET G. See how that goes, but I might get some carbon PET G as well, just so it's a bit stronger. Doesn't need to be super flexible. Just about the strength and the chemical resistance. So if you've got it in the car and it's a 30 degrees outside, 60 degrees inside the car when it's parked potentially, you don't want your 3D print essentially melting. For this one though, I've designed it using a 3D scan from this component here. As you can see, when you line them up, they're very similar the results, and it just means that it screws in quite neatly into the space there. I did think about tilting them or rotating them towards the driver, but I'm one of those people that love to have things symmetrical and just down the line looking neat. There is definitely a function element to a gauge, but there's also an aesthetic element as well. And for the amount of time that you would sit there looking at your gauges down underneath your radio, it's highly unlikely. For something that's more important like that, I would probably go for a different setup where it's immediate and it's right in front of you, up where the cluster is up there, which is something I'll look into in the future. But for this type of setup where it's more about the aesthetics, I'd like to just have it perfectly symmetrical, straight down the line, matching the lines of the car. So that's what I've gone for. I did print this in 2 pieces to simplify the process, so I didn't have too much, like with 3D printing, you don't want too many supports around it. So the best thing you can do is angle it on the bed, and then also separate the parts that don't need to be connected to each other at the time of print, and that way you don't have supports in between parts that just make it messy for the cleanup. So this one was quite simple, sitting it flat like that, and therefore the supports were coming up behind it, and it doesn't just ruin your finished surface on the other side. And then likewise for this part, just laying it relatively flat on the bed, therefore you're not wasting too much material printing it. You get a quick result, and yeah, it sort of allows you to put them together, which I kind of think it's neat that way. I can potentially evolve this a bit more in design to cater for different types of gauge setups, but for the moment this is bang on what I'm after. So let's just get on with this and start installing. My plan is to prime this and paint it essentially a satin black. This is just a temporary setup, but I'd like it for the car show that's coming up soon, just to have the gauges set up and installed, and then this there fitted as well. And then when I can print a better version of this, I will, and I'll drop that in. But at least the gauges, the wiring, all the vacuum line, everything will be run, so it's all ready to go. So let's just get straight into it. Now, apparently there is a little cable hidden behind this panel here on the passenger side that is perfect for getting a 12 volt signal that's on ignition. So let's see if we have any luck. Sticky tape, taped on there with electrical tape. But that right there is the cable that we need. Now, typically it's used for the phone. So if this had an optional phone, I'm assuming this is the device, or this is the power source they would use for that. So that's great, that's perfect. We're going to use that and tap straight into that. Alright everyone, so I'm going to splice the 2 cables for both gauges together. Some gauges do have 2 pin outs on the back to allow you to run from one to the other, but this one's just simple, and that's okay by me. So I've got the 2 cables here, and it should be a pretty simple job. It's just matching up the correct colours because they're from the same brand, and checking on the papers just in case, but pretty straightforward stuff. And then we're just going to jam it into that pin out there, which is a fused link. It's about 10 amps, so plenty for 2 gauges. So let's just get this sorted. Alrighty, so we're now going to take out the old oil pressure sensor. This is just a temporary fix until I get an adapter, maybe a oil filter sandwich plate or something like that, just so I can fit more oil pressure sensors on there and have more options for the future. But for now, let's just whip this one off so we can put the aftermarket one on. Too easy. Only a little bit of oil will come out. A little bit on the carpet there, no big deal, that's why it's there. And now we can fit the aftermarket one and compare the threads just to make sure that we're dealing with the right thing. Alrighty, so we've got the new one here. It's nothing special, pretty chunky unit as well with some old school connection here, so it's not exactly ideal, but we'll work with it. So it's got this adapter here, and fortunately it's pretty much the right thread pitch and size, so we should be alright. I'm gonna just put a tiny bit of thread tape in there. I don't think we really need anything in there, but I'm just gonna chuck a tiny bit in there just for insurance. And I'll probably bolt this in first, just so it's in there reasonably home, and then bolt this one on. So there we go. Now I have the boost line hooked up in this, so I just use a silicon boost line and I teed off the front of the manifold, so I'll just quickly show you that here. I just jumped right in there and pulled off the old rubber plug and fitted on some hose there, and then just a piece there just to turn it to the left and running it in behind the alternator there, and then along sort of on top of the fuel rail and harness that's along here, and then through the clutch pedal master cylinder area just through there, and then into the cabin. So that should do for now. Obviously I'll be doing a manual conversion of this later, and I will have to address that issue that I'm going through that using that part of access through the firewall there. So be it, that's fine. And then we have the oil pressure sender there. So it is one of those dorky massive units, but I'm not too phased because, again, I'll be replacing that with a sandwich plate and an adapter elsewhere, and that way it'll probably be located in a better position, and maybe later on might even replace it with a better sender unit. That's pretty straightforward, same deal. Bit of line traveling up and meeting up with the vac line, going across the same path, so they sort of go in united into the interior there. It's pretty simple stuff, so we'll go into the interior now and I'll just show you what I've done with the... Ready everyone, so I have teed into that harness here, which was the mobile phone harness that provided me the 12 volts from the battery constant, and then also the ignition as well, and then also an earth. And then from there also there's a brown and white wire there that sort of travels along here to illuminate these components here, and for the illumination of the power window switches. So I teed into that so I can provide these lighting when the headlights turn on. These will turn on along with the rest of the dash. So I've just ran these through, pretty logical, straight up through behind there. And we've got the vacuum line here coming through. I've got to shorten that yet. But yeah, we're pretty much ready to go to bolt in the twin gauge 3D printed part. So let's just get onto that now. Everyone, so now we're going to spray these 3D printed parts. We're just going to give it a basic undercoat, like a heavy etch sort of high fill coat, and then we'll just paint it with probably a gloss black or a satin black, just to match with the general sort of black plastic finish that's in the Monaro here. So I'm just going to show you the basic process of that. It's pretty simple, and we'll get this bolted in ASAP. We've now finished up painting these. Just a basic coat of sort of satin black and primer under that. So yeah, let's get these fitted up. Now we've got that, we've got the gauges hooked up and ready to go. It's just a matter of fitting this with the gauges. Everyone, so the gauges are installed, as you can see. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you like, share and subscribe and do all those social things. In the future we'll be looking at doing seats for the interior. We'll be putting in the Coulson seats. Should be a good video. And until then, I hope you stay safe on the roads, and chat to you later. Alright, thanks everyone. See ya.